Buyurun. Hanımlar ve canablar, hürmetli konferans iştirakçıları, əziz qonaqlar. Sizi bugün bu tribunadan salamlamak mənə çox böyük məmnunluq hissi verir. Bugün bizim burada toplaşmağımızın səbəbi uşaq inkişaf hesabları, uşaq rifahına yeni yanaşma mövzusunda belə deyək, post-sovet məkanında ilk dəfə keçirilən beynəlxalq konferansa yığışmışıq. Və mən Azərbaycan Sosial İşbirliyin həmkarları adından, öz adımdan hər birinizə bu konferansda bizimlə gəlib fikirlərinizi bölüşmək arzunuza görə təşəkkürümü bildirirəm və xüsusi təşəkkürümü bu konferansın bugün ərsəyə gəlməsində bizə dəstək verən bütün qurumlara, o cümlədən bizə maliyyə dəstəyi verən Azərbaycan prezidenti yanında QHT-lərə dəstək şurasına verdiyi maliyyə dəstəyinə görə Azərbaycan İncəsənət və Mədəniyyət Universitetinin, o cümlədən Vaşinqton Universitetinin, Vaşinqton St. Louis Universitetinin Sosial Xidmətlər Mərkəzinin dəstəyinə görə xüsusi təşəkkürümü bildirirəm. Uşaq inkişafı hesabları bu termin Azərbaycanda və ümumiyyətlə o Sovet məkanında bizim hamımız üçün yeni bir termindir. Və bu proqramın, uşaq inkişafı hesabları proqramının müəllifi Profesör Michael Sheridan'dır. Vaşinqton Universitetinin Profesör Michael Sheridan'dır. Və ötən il bu proqramın məqsədi haqqında, yəni daha geniş məlumatı cənab Sheridan özü verəcək və qonaqlarımız daha ətraflı danışacaq bu barədə. Mən demək istəyirəm, yəni bu bir termin olaraq bizim üçün yeni bir termin olan uşaq inkişafı proqramları bizim həmişə dediyimiz şüar, uşaqlar bizim gələcəyimizdir. Yəni uşaqlar bizim gələcəyimizdir dedikdə, təbii ki, biz uşaqlarımızın xoşbəxt gələcəyini təmin etmək üçün bugün əlimizdən gələni əsirgəməyik və təbii ki, uşaq inkişafı hesablarının açılması da bu proqramın da uşaqlarımızın xoşbəxt gələcəyini təmin etməsində böyük rolu var. Və bu proqram artıq dünyanın inkişaf etmiş bir neçə ölkəsində, o cümlədən Kanada, Singapur, Böyük Britaniya, Amerikanın bir neçə ştatında artıq dövlət səviyyəsində həyata keçirilən bir proqramdır. Və təbii ki, Azərbaycan Sosial İctimai birliyi üçün ümumiyyətlə ölkədə sosial müdafiə sistemini və o cümlədən sosial müdafiə sisteminin əsas tərkib hissəsi olan uşaq müdafiə sisteminin inkişafı və təkmilləşdirilməsi üçün mövcud olan bütün proqramları təbii ki, biz Azərbaycanda görmək istəyərdik və bu bizim üçün realitet məsələdir. Ona görə təşkilatımız ötən il cənab Michael Sheridan'a belə bir təşəbbüslə müraciət elədi və çox sağ olsun cənab professor, o bizim təşəbbüsümüzü qəbul etdi və artıq ötən il dekabr ayında Azərbaycan Sosial İctimai Birliyinin illik hesabat konferansında o artıq bu proqramın ideyası haqqında bizlərə məlumat verdi və Azərbaycanda qərar vericilərlə, QHT-lərlə, universitetlər nümayəndələri ilə bu mövzu ilə bağlı bir neçə görüşlər oldu və o cümlədən də, sən bilirəmsə, Azərbaycan televiziyasına intervyuda vermişdi cənab Sheridan. Və təbii ki, ondan sonra biz düşündük ki, bu proqramı Azərbaycana və daha genişlisi post-sovet məkanına gətirmək üçün biz nədən başlamalıyıq və Azərbaycanda maliyyə dəstəyi üçün müraciət elədik Azərbaycan Respublikası Prezidentinin QT-lərə dəstək şurasına və çox sağ olsunlar bizə maliyyə dəstəyi verdilər və bugün biz həmin QT şurasının maliyyə dəstəyi ilə Azərbaycanda artıq bir neçə dəyərli masalar, fərqli görüşlər, yəni bu uşaq hesabları ilə bağlı maarifləndirmə işlərini aparırıq ki, bugünkü konferansda həmin silsilə fəaliyyətlərimizdən biridir. Bugün bizim təşəbbüsümüzü dəstəkləmək üçün post-sovet məkanından gələn bütün həmkarlarımıza xüsusi təşəkkürünü bildirmək istəyirəm. O cümlədə inkişaf eləmiş ölkələrdə artıq uğurla sınavdan keçmiş və dövlət səviyyəsində həyata keçirilən bu proqram haqqında təcrübələrini və biliklərini bizimlə bölüşməyə gələn xarici həmkarlarımıza da xüsusi təşəkkürünü bildirirəm. Və təbii ki, hər bir konferansda açılış nitqi və çıxış edən bizim hörmətli qonaqlarımız olur. Bugün bizim konferansın ilk açılış nitqini mən Azərbaycan İncəsənət və Mədəniyyət Universitetinin rektoru professor cənab Ceyran xanıma söz vermək istəyərdim. Xanım Ceyran xanıma söz vermək istəyirəm. Buyurun Ceyran xanım.
Hörmətli qonaqlar, xanımlar və cənablar, Azərbaycan Dövlət Mədəniyyət və İncəsənət Universiteti adından mən sizin hər birinizi bizim universitetdə salamlayıram. Hamıya yaxşı məlumdur ki, sosial iş bizim həyatımızın vacib sahələrindən biridir. Və sosial iş insan həyatının müxtəlif sahələrinə şamil ola bilər. O müxtəlif sahələrdən biri və ən vaciblərindən biri də uşaqlarla bağlıdır. Məlumdur ki, uşaqların da həyatında elə dönəmlər olur, onların həyatında elə bir dövr olur ki, onların xüsusi diqqətə, xüsusi qayğıya ehtiyacları olur. Və bu sahənin də xüsusi olaraq elmi konferanslarda əhatə olunması, bu barədə fikir mübadiləsinin aparılması olduqca vacibdir və deyərdim ki, günümüzün aktual məsələlərindən biridir. Azərbaycanda sosial işlə bağlı məsələlər bu əsrin əvvəllərindən xüsusi sürətlə inkişaf etməyə başlamışdır. Rəhbərlik etdiyim universitetdə 2015-2016-cı ildən başlayaraq artıq sosial iş bir ixtisas kimi tədris olunur və bu illər ərzində bir çox gənclər məhz bu sahəyə diqqət yönəltmiş və bu da bizi fərəhləndirməyə bilməz. Çünki sosial sahə elə bir sahədir ki, hər bir insana şamil olunur. Hər birimiz sosial işçilərlə bilavasitə rastlaşırıq öz həyatımızın müxtəlif dövrlərində və 21-ci əsrin tələblərinə uyğun olaraq yeni biliklərlə, yeni məlumatlarla tanış olan, onları mənimsəyən, onları mükəmməl bilən gənc kadrların yetişdirilməsi əlbəttə çox vacibdir. Bizim universitetimizdə də tələbələrimizin kifayət qədər yüksək səviyyədə maarifləndirilməsi və öyrənilməsi sayəsində bir çox işlər görülür. Bizim universitetə artıq bu illər ərzində bir neçə xarici mütəxəssislər də dəvət olunur müxtəlif ölkələrdən, hansılar ki, tələbələrimiz qarşısında mühazirələrlə çıxış edir. Dünya təcrübəsi haqqında onları xəbərdar edir. Şübhə etmirəm ki, gələcəkdə də bizim universitet bu sahədə aparılan işləri daha da genişləndirəcək və Azərbaycana vacib olan yüksək peşəkarlığa malik ixtisaslı kadrların yetişdirilməsində var gücü ilə işləyəcək. Çox şadıq ki, bu tədbir bəs bizim universitetdə keçirilir. Bir daha universitetimizə xoş gəlmişsiniz. Konferansın işində hamımıza uğurlar arzulayırıq. Diqqətinizə görə təşəkkür ederim.
Çok sağ olun Ceyran Hanım. Çıxış üçün növbəti sözü Aynur Hanıma veririk. Aynur Hanım Azərbaycanda uşaq müdafiəsi sahəsində öz sözünü demiş dövlət işçilərindən biridir və QHT-lerin çox yaxın dostudur. Aynur Hanım Ailə Qadın Uşaq Problemləri üzrə Dövlət Komitəsinin sədr müavinidir və bildiyim qədər komitədə uşaq məsələlərinə cavabdeh bir şəxsdir. Buyurun Aynur Hanım.
Təşəkkür edirəm bu gözəl təqdimata görə. Mən də hər kəsi salamlayıram, hörmətli tədbir iştirakçıları, hörmətli Ceyran xanım. Mən xüsusi salamlamaq istəyirəm. Burada UNICEF-in komandası əyləşir, cənab Karvardinin. Çünki uşaq məsələlərindən danışanda UNICEF-siz mümkün deyil. Və mən bugünkü bu vacib mövzuya həsr olunan konferansa işinə uğurlar arzulayıram. Əlbəttə ki, uşaq məsələləri elə bir məsələdir ki, elə bir istiqamətdir ki, burada həm hər kəsin, istər dövlət qurumları olsun, özəl qurumlar olsun, vətəndaş cəmiyyəti olsun, burada birgə fəaliyyətdə, birgə əməkdaşlığa çox böyük ehtiyac var. Ona görə də biz komitə olaraq əlbəttə ki, belə bir təşəbbüsləri, belə bir tədbirləri həmişə dəstəkləyirik və bu təşəbbüsdə iştirak edən, əməyi olan hər kəsə komitənin adından mən də öz təşəkkürümü bildirirəm və uğurlar arzulayıram. Hər birimiz bilirik, bugün Azərbaycanda çox uğurlu siyasət həyata keçirilir hər bir istiqamətdə və sosial-iqtisadi islahatlar Azərbaycanda aparılan əhalinin sosial rifahının yaxşılaşmasına istiqamətlənməklə insan hüquq və azadlıqları, sosial həmrəylik prinsiplərinin təmin olunması istiqamətində mühüm irəlişlərə nail olunub və əlbəttə ki, bu sosial islahatlar əsas da əhalinin həssas təbəqəsinin hüquqlarının təmin olunması istiqamətində çox mühüm əhəmiyyətə malikdir. Biz uşaq məsələlərindən danışanda əlbəttə ki, deməliyik ki, uşaq hüquqlarının müdafiəsi dövlətin prioritet istiqamətlərindəndir. Uşaqların sağlam böyüməsi, onların hüquqlarının müdafiəsi, təmin olunması, müasir təhsillə təmin olunması istiqamətində dövlət tərəfindən mühüm addımlar həyata keçirilir və uşaq siyasətindən danışanda bizim üçün əlbəttə ki, ən vacib məsələ odur ki, Azərbaycanda yaşayan hər bir uşaq üçün bərabər hüquqların təmin olunması, sosial xidmətlərin uşaqlar üçün təmin olunması, bu bizim üçün ən vacib məsələlərdən biridir. Dövlət Komitəsi bu istiqamətdə fəaliyyət həyata keçirərək həm qanunvericiliyin təkmilləşməsi istiqamətində öz təkliflərini irəli sürür, mühüm addımlar atır, həm də bu istiqamətdə araşdırmalar, təhlillərin aparılması, maarifləndirmənin aparılması istiqamətində fəaliyyət həyata keçirir. Bizim üçün prioritet istiqamət əlbəttə ki, həssas təbəqədən olan ailələrin, həssas təbəqədən olan uşaqlara yönəlik siyasətdir və xüsusilə ailə, qadın və uşaq problemləri üzrə Dövlət Komitəsinin uşaq və ailələrə dəstək mərkəzləri fəaliyyət göstərir ki, təəssüflər olsun ki, bugün Azərbaycanın cəmi 11 rayonunda bu mərkəzlərimiz fəaliyyət göstərir və bu fəaliyyət göstərir ki, doğrudan da uşaq hüquqlarının müdafiəsi, uşaqların təminatı istiqamətində belə bir mərkəzlərə, bu mərkəzlərin daha da artırılmasına bugün çox böyük ehtiyac var. Çünki bu mərkəzlər yerlərdə, icmada uşaqların problemlərinin aşkarlanması, onların xidmətlərə cəlb olunması, uşaq müdafiə istiqamətində maariflənmə, belə deyək, qüvvələrin birləşdirilməsi üçün çox əhəmiyyətlidir ki, doğrudan da biz çox gözəl bu mərkəzlərin fəaliyyəti nəticəsində nəticələr əldə edirik. Komitə tərəfindən bugün 2 bank hazırlanıb, artıq fəaliyyətə başlama ərəfəsindədir və mən xüsusi qeyd eləmək istəyirəm ki, bu UNICEF-in dəstəyi ilə komitənin əməkdaşlığı nəticəsində bu banklar formalaşır, bir milli uşaq bankıdır ki, bugün Azərbaycanda mövcud olan bütün uşaqları bu bank əhatə edəcək və o bankda bütün məlumatlar toplanacaq və burada uşaqlara istiqamətlənmiş fəaliyyətin daha da səmərəli həyata keçirilməsi üçün bizim üçün çox əhəmiyyətli olacaq və ikinci bankda elə bizim mərkəzlərimizdə fəaliyyət göstərəcək. Bu da qiymətləndirmə ilə bağlı, doğrudan da çox önəmli fəaliyyətə malik olacaq bir bankdır ki, mən qeyd eləmək istəyirəm ki, case management prinsipi əsasında bizim fəaliyyətimiz qurulub və burada ailələrin qiymətləndirilməsi və uşaqların rifahına yönəlmiş tədbirlərin həyata keçirilməsi istiqamətində əlbəttə ki, bu fəaliyyət bizim üçün çox önəmlidir. Biz uşaq məsələlərindən, prioritetlərimizdən danışanda əlbəttə ki, uşaq iştirakçılığına da böyük önəm verilir. Çünki uşaqların öz hüquqlarının müdafiəsi istiqamətində fəal olması, öz istəklərini, öz arzularını və öz fikirlərini cəmiyyətə çatdırması, müvafiq dövlət qurumlarına çatdırması, bu əlbəttə ki, uşaqların inkişafı baxımından çox önəmlidir. Dövlətimizin siyasətindən danışanda bugün fəaliyyət göstərən, icra olunan həm dövlət proqramları, milli fəaliyyət planları bizim düşündüklərimizi və uşaqların müdafiəsi üçün tam imkan verən bir bazanın, qanunvericilik bazasının üzərində fəaliyyətimizi həyata keçirmək üçün bir əsasdır. Mən xüsusilə qeyd eləmək istəyirəm ki, gələcəyə istiqamətlənən sənədlərimizi, gələcəyə baxış strategiyasında ən vacib nəzərdə tutulan sənədlərdən biri uşaq strategiyasının və uşaq məcəlləsinin hazırlanmasıdır ki, bugün Dövlət Komitəsi bu sənədləri hazırlayıb və demək olar ki, uşaq strategiyası ilə qəbul olmaq üzrədir ki, və həmin strategiyada sosial xidmətlər istiqamətində də çox önəmli məsələlər öz əksini təqdim. Mən sonda bir daha təşəkkürümü bildirmək istəyirəm və komitə adından qeyd eləmək istəyirəm ki, biz əməkdaşlığa daim hazırıq və belə müsbət təcrübələri həmişə dəstəkləyəcək. Təşəkkür edirəm.
Çox sağ olun. Növbəti sözüm Uşaq İnkişafı Hesabları proqramının müəllifi, Next Age İnstitutunun direktoru, Washington Üniversitesi'nin SOSİAL İnkişaf Mərkəzinin direktoru, Profesör Cənab Şeridan'a verirəm. Buyurun.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. I want to thank the Azerbaijan Social Work Public Union headed by Aytakin Hüseyinli, who's done a remarkable job in leading and working with many colleagues to develop social work in Azerbaijan and organize for the development of social work. I want to thank also the State University of Arts and Culture that's supporting this important discussion, and the Council of State Support for Non-Governmental Organizations. These are partnerships that make this meeting possible and allow us to consider ideas for the future, and we greatly value all of this support. It's a pleasure for me to come to a meeting in another part of the world and consider social policy issues. I think all of us in every country are in a transition between social policies of the industrial era, the 20th century, and social policies for an information era that will develop in the 21st century. And I see all of this discussion in that context. That's what we're trying to figure out. The 20th century social policy idea was primarily one of support. When people didn't have labor market income, then social policy would support household well-being for children or for disabled people or for people who are no longer working in old age. This is a very successful social policy strategy in many ways. In much of that we will carry forward, many countries will carry forward into the 21st century appropriately. However, policies are very much designed for industrial labor markets, and it's very clear, at least in the United States, very clear that labor markets are not going to be the same in the information age as the industrial age. So we will have to figure out what kind of social policies make sense for information age economies, which we will all be developing as we go along. In this regard, the primary idea of social policy in the 20th century was income support. And I would suggest that probably this idea will carry forward, but other important social policy ideas are very likely to emerge. And one of these may be building assets. The households need not just income support, but also accumulate some assets so they can make investments in their children and make investments in themselves to provide increasing household stability. This is a rather new idea in the world, but an idea that's emerging in many places. Probably the most developed example is the small country of Singapore. Many of you are familiar with these social policy ideas. So, and Singapore in some ways has figured out this kind of social policy arrangement and been very successful in doing so. Not every country should be like Singapore. Certainly the United States is not going to become like Singapore. But we can all learn from each other. And one strategy for beginning to learn about this policy direction is to think about giving all children an account. I think about this as almost like what economists would call a public good, that once every child has an account, then it becomes possible to create flows of resources into the accounts for those children so they can develop for their education and to develop their careers. It will turn out to be the case, Azerbaijan depends a lot on oil revenue, but it will turn out to be the case that in all countries, human capital development will be even more important than in the past. So investing in all of our children so they're as educated as possible is not just a matter of care and concern and protection, but it's also a matter of development of children, and the development of children, as someone has said, children are the future. The development of children is really about national development, and it's about global development. We all have to develop our children as successfully as possible. So this policy idea is not just about protection, but also about development. And that way, it's a little bit different way to think. We will have discussion in this meeting from some examples from various countries. We will talk about policy policies, initiatives that are happening in the Central Asia region, post-Soviet states. We're fortunate to have Danielle Gottlieb here, who's going to talk about a policy in Israel that is opening accounts for every child. We have some examples in the United States where this policy is developing, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And we're fortunate, very fortunate. I want to thank all of you who have come so far to participate in this discussion. We'll have examples from many places so that we can all learn from each other about what's working and what's not working and how we might think about this kind of policy development going forward. So I just want to express my appreciation for the discussion. I will learn a lot in these today, and I'll be listening very carefully all day long. And I hope that we can exchange some ideas that will enable us to develop the best policy for children in all of our countries. That will look a little bit different in every country, and it should look a little bit different, but we can think together about what might be successful. So thank you for coming. I look forward to the discussion.
Doğrudan da Cenab Şendan'ın çıkışından da gördüğümüz gibi bu uşaq inkişaf hesabları doğrudan da uşaqlarımızın xoşbəxt gələcəyini təmin etmək üçün çox vacib bir proqramdır. Və təbii ki, biz çox istəyərdik ki, bu proqramı inşallah tezliklə Azərbaycana gətirək və bu təşəbbüslə çıxış edən Aytəkin xanım Hüseynovanı Washington Universitetində doktorluq pilləsində təhsil alan və Azərbaycan SOSİAL İCTİMAİ BİRLİYİ'nin sədri olan Aytəkin xanıma söz vermək istəyirəm.
Ben oraya konuşacağım, mikrofon yok. Hamınızı ilk önce salamlayıram. Auditoriyada çok tanış sifətlər var, simalar var. Hoş gəlmişsiniz ilk önce. Vaxtınızı ayırmışsınız bizim bu fikrimizi, bizim bu təşəbbüsümüzü dəstəkləmək üçün bugün buradasınız. Mən ilk ön sözümü istəyirəm ki, bəzi insanlar var ki, bu tədbirin ərsəyə gəlməsində pərdə arxasında olan insanlar var. Onlara istərdim ki, təşəkkür edək. Onların əməyi nəticəsində sözünü biz buradayıq. İlk öncə bu təşəbbüsümüzü qısa bir zamanda dəstəklədiyi üçün, belə bir tədbirin keçirilməsini qısa zamanda dəstəklədiyi üçün, bu fikrə açıq olduğu üçün Azərbaycan Dövlət İncəsənət və Mədəniyyət Universitetinin rektoru xanım Ceyran Mahmudovaya öz təşəkkürümü bildirmək istəyirəm. Çox sağ olun Ceyran xanım ki, açıq olduğunuz bu tədbiri sizin universitetdə belə bir səviyyədə keçirməyinizə razı oldunuz, bizə qapıları açdınız. Çox təşəkkür edirəm sizə. Eyni zamanda Aynur xanıma təşəkkür edirəm. Aynur xanım Sofiyeva ki, bugün buradadır. Hər zaman olduğu kimi, harada mən elə gəlir ki, Aynur xanım uşaq müdafiəsi haqqında, uşaq rifah haqqında bir tədbir olarsa orada olmağa çalışır. Çox sağ olun Aynur xanım, gəlmişsiniz, bugün buradasınız. Eyni zamanda mən təşəkkür etmək istəyərəm Dr. Michael Sheridan'a. O da qısa bir zamanda bizim bu təşəbbüsü həm mənəvi, həm maliyyə baxımından dəstəklədi, həm ideya baxımından dəstəklədi. Buradadır bugün. Eyni zamanda onun mərkəzində çalışan xanım Lizoya da təşəkkür edirəm. Li, çox sağ ol, buradasan. Çox danışırdıq Bakı haqqında. Axır ki, burada gəldin, gördüm Bakını. Çox xoşuna gəlib Bakı. Çox sağ ol gəldiyiniz üçün. Bununla yanaşı Profesör Daniel'a, o da qısa bir zamanda bizim təklifimizi qəbul elədi. Çox sağ olun Profesör Daniel, buradasınız. Bugün siz öz təcrübənizi bizimlə bölüşəcəksiniz. Tədbirin arxasında olan daha digər böyük qüvvələri mən təşəkkür eləmək istəyərdim. Sədaqət xanım, görmürəm onu, yoxdur. Sədaqət xanım Əliyeva bu universitetdə kafedra müdürüdür. Sosial işlə sonradan gəlsə də çox güclü bir tutumu var Sədaqət xanımı. Biz onu Amerikada bir səfərdə olduq bu yaxınlarda. Çox necə deyərlər, səmərəli bir səfər keçirildi və Sədaqət xanımın sosial rifaha, sosial işə olan o həvəsi, o bir növ marağı bizi çox yaxşı baxımdan təəccübləndirdi. Belə bir insanların ölkəmizdə olması bu sahənin inkişafına dəstək verici qüvvələrdən biridir, insan kapitallarından biridir, mən bunu deyərdim. Eyni zamanda bu tədbiri demək olar ki, aparıcı qüvvəsi, aparıcı təkəri bizim təşkilatın icraçı direktoru Lamia, mən istəyərdim hamı Lamia Xanbala Zamin, bu uşaqların hamısına mən dərin təşəkkürümü bildirmək istəyirdim. Həqiqətən qısa zamanda biz bu tədbiri çox daxili bir tədbir kimi keçirtmək istəyirdik, amma təkliflər oldu və qısa zamanda bunu bir növ beynəlxalq bir tədbir elədik. Hal-hazırda burada hardasa 10 ölkədən təqdimatçılar, qonaqlar var. Onlar bu gün ərzində öz təqdimatlarını edəcəklər və bunlar bu tədbirlərin ərsəyə gəlməsində Lamiyə, Xanbala, Zamin, Leyla, Könül çox sağ olun və sizin bu Azərbaycanda uşaq rifahının inkişafına verdiyiniz töhfədir. Yəni töhfələr müxtəlif olur, maraq olur, əmək olur, könüllülük olur. Bu sizin verdiyiniz töhfədir. Gələcəkdə bu sistem qurulanda uğurla öz uşaqlarınıza deyə bilərsiniz ki, bax bu sistemin yaranmasında, uşaqların rifahının inkişafında bizim də dəstəyimiz olub, töhfəmiz olub və bundan ibarətdir. Eyni zamanda bizim idarə heyətinin sədri Gülnara xanım Pənahovaya təşəkkürümü bildirmək istəyirəm. Bugün o da buradadır. Hər zaman bu sahədə işləyib, artıq 20 ilə yaxındır uşaq müdafiə sistemində çalışır və bu sahədən ayrılmaq fikrində məncə deyil. Qonaqların hər birinə bugün burada Gürcüstandan, Moldavadan, Ukraynadan, Rusiyadan, Türkiyədən, Qazaxıstandan və uzaq Monqolistandan təqdimatçılarımız və qonşu İrandan qonaqlarımız və təqdimatçılarımız var. Xoş gəlmişsiniz, çox sağ olun ki, bugün gəlmişsiniz, buradasınız. Bizim bu təklifi, bizim bu ideyanı dəstəkləyirsiniz və sizi bu dialoqda yaxından iştirak etməyə dəvət edirik. Eyni zamanda mən təşəkkür eləmək istəyərdim idarə heyətinin üzvü. Baxmayaraq ki, 350 nəfərlik bir komandası olan özəl bir məktəbi idarə edir. Amma heç bir zaman, heç bir Skype, mən xaricdə yaşadığım üçün bu idarə etmədə mən xaricdən Skype-la biz tez-tez iclaslarımızı edirik, idarə etmə iclaslarımızı edirik təşkilatda. Heç bir iclası keçirtməyən, heç bir e-maili, təsəvvürən 350 nəfərlik bir və 1000-dən çox uşaq olan məktəbin idarəsində idarəçisisən, direktorusan belə deyək. Amma heç bir Skype olur, heç bir e-maili nəzərdən qaçırtmayan, heç bir iclası nəzərdən qaçırtmayan idarə heyətinin üzvü eyni zamanda mənimlə bərabər bu Azərbaycan Sosial İCTİMAİ Birliyinin həm təsisçisi olan Amaliya xanım, qalx zəhmət olsa, Amaliya xanım Şirinova Sezginə də öz dərin təşəkkürümü bildirirəm. Hər zaman təşkilatımızın fəaliyyətinin və bu işlərin ərsəyə gəlməsində öz töhfəsini verir. Sədaqət xanım gəldi. Çox sağ olun Sədaqət xanım. Sizin haqqında danışdıq, amma siz burada deyildiniz. Çox sağ olun sizin dəstəyiniz üçün, açıq olduğunuz üçün bu ideya. Mən indi eyni zamanda da bizim bu təklifi layihə şəklində Azərbaycan prezidenti yanında QHT-lərə Dəstək Şurasına da özlərin təşəkkürümüzü bildiririk ki, bizim bu ideyanı layihə şəklində dəstəklədilər və bu tədbirin əmələ ərsəyə gəlməsində bugün burada bu müzakirənin aparılmasına öz dəstəklərini verdilər. Onun nümayəndəsi buradadır. Çox sağ olun, təşəkkür edirik sizə də və inanırıq ki, ümid edirik ki, bu davamiyyətli olar. Elə buradan mən bu təqdimatdan istəyərdim ki, keçim layihə haqqında bir-iki cümlə ilə məlumat verim. Gülnara xanım, biz Gülə deyirik, Gülnara xanım. Gülnara xanım da qeyd elədiyi kimi, keçən il biz Dr. Michael'la Azərbaycanda olduq, cənab Hafiz Paşayevin dəvəti ilə və Sosial Müdafiə Naziri ilə görüşdük, Hicran xanım, Dövlət Komitəsinin sədri Hicran xanımla görüşdük, Hadı müəllimlə görüşdük, bugün mən onu burada görmürəm, özü də daimi bu proseslərin arxasındadır və belə çox xoşları gəldi bu fikirdən və dedilər ki, bunu bir layihə şəklində, bir cəmiyyəti maarifləndirmək və bunu bir təklif şəklində təqdim eləmək lazımdır və biz təşkilat olaraq layihə yazdıq, təqdim elədik Azərbaycan Prezidenti Heyəti Şurasının dəstək fonduna. Onlar bunu maliyyə baxımından, həm də deyərdim siyasi baxımdan dəstəklədilər və keçən ildən bir il müddətində artıq biz bu layihənin adı belə gedirdi, Uşaq İnkişaf Hesabları üzrə maarifləndirmə kampaniyasının aparılması və beynəlxalq təcrübələrin öyrənilməsi. Bu layihə çərçivəsində bir çox tədbirlər keçirilmişdi, amma əsas məqsəd cəmiyyətdə bu uşaq inkişafı hesabları haqqında məlumatlığın artırılması idi. Ümumiyyətlə, bu nə deməkdir, nəyə görə lazımdır, hansı ölkələrdə indiyə qədər keçirilib və bunun bu tədbirlər çərçivəsində biz 4-ə yaxın dəyirmi masa keçirtmişik, qərarverici qurumlarla, ictimai sektordan olan təşkilatlarla, Facebook, web saytımızda və eyni zamanda digər sosial YouTube şəbəkələrimizdə daimi məlumatlandırılma aparıb, Azərbaycan dilinə məlumatlar tərcümə olunub, qısa policy brieflər deyirlər, onlar icmalar yazılıb və ictimaiyyətlə paylaşılmışdır. Qəzetdə iki məqalə Azərbaycan dilində çap olunmuşdur və eyni zamanda televiziya çıxışı olmuşdur bir dəfə və bir də bu beynəlxalq konfransı biz bugün həmin layihənin çərçivəsində təşkil edirik. Layihənin məqsədi yenə də uşaq inkişafı hesabları haqqında məlumatlandırmanın aparılması və Azərbaycanda uşaq müdafiə sistemində onun yerinin görülməsi üzrə bir qısa bir siyasi sənədində hazırlanması, daha doğrusu siyasi sənədində hazırlanması nəzərdə tutulmuşdur. Mənim demək istədiklərim bu qədər. Çox sağ olun, sizə təşəkkür edirəm, yenə də gəlmişsiniz. İndi biz gün ərzində təqdimatlara qulaq asacağıq. Mənə görə çox maraqlı müzakirə olacaqdır. Singapur, Tayvan, Cənubi Koreya, İsrail və Amerikanın bir neçə ştatının timsalında uşaq inkişafı hesablarının dövlət proqramının tətbiq olunması haqqında məlumat veriləcəkdir. Eyni zamanda bayaqdan adlarını çəkdiyim postsovet ölkələri İran, Türkiyə və Monqolistandan gələn qonaqlarımız da öz ölkələrində dövlətin uşaqlara verdiyi maliyyə yardımı və dəstəyi dövlət proqramları haqqında da danışacaqlar. Çox sağ olun, bir daha təşəkkür edirəm.
Çok sağ olun Aytekin Hanım. Benim unuttuğum detalları da yani teşekkür eləmək istədiyim ama unuttuğum insanlar ki var. Çok üzr istəyirəm onlardan və mən də təşəkkür edirəm öz adımdan da Aytekin sözlərindən qatılıram. Və keçirik tədbirimizin növbəti hissəsinə, təqdimatlar hissəsinə və cənab Michael Şiradan uşaq inkişaf hesabları, tədqiqatlar və proqram modelləri ilə bağlı təqdimat edəcək. Buyurun.
Thank you very much. I will take a few minutes to talk about universal child development accounts. The theme is toward asset building for everyone. This example is from research and policy in the United States. So the main message is that we are actively doing studies of child development accounts to see if they're effective, and the results are pretty positive, and we'll convey that message and then talk about policy development in some U.S. states and cities. So CDAs, or child development accounts, have been proposed in the United States as part of the grand challenges for social work. Social work is laying out a mission to accomplish some major challenges over the next decade. So this is a report on progress of that research and policy innovation. So our view of child development accounts is, if possible, bring children in as early in life as possible. At birth is actually the best for administrative reasons, because you can know when children are born and they have a birth certificate, you can track them immediately. Otherwise, even in a well-developed country like the United States, it's pretty hard to find all the children once they leave the hospital if you're not tracking them with a birth certificate. So just for administrative reasons and because assets accumulate over time, starting at birth is a good idea. The goal is really, in our view, a lifelong asset building policy. So we always have this larger picture in mind, but starting an asset building policy that includes everyone. Up until now, we've assumed that asset building is something that wealthy people do and poor people just sort of get by. But this is a different kind of policy statement, which is that all people need, even the poorest people also need to accumulate assets if their lives are to be stable and they're able to develop. So our question is, we actually know how to do asset building policy. In the U.S. we have this policy, but we don't include the poor. So part one is about research lessons and CDA policy design. The first question that we ask is, can a large sustainable policy be put in place? So this is really the first question, and I'm happy to say Dr. Gottlieb will talk about Israel and following my remarks. They have implemented a large policy that includes everyone. So this is often taken for granted in the United States. In the United States, we think about individuals and what's happening to individuals, but actually, this social policy challenge requires implementing or taking advantage of a policy structure that is capable of delivering this system. So I'm sure some of the discussion today will pick up this theme. We have a long-running experiment in the United States, random sampling of treatment control groups. This is in the state of Oklahoma. So this is an experiment in a full state population. It's been running now for almost 12 years. The results have been positive. What I would like to say about this is kind of a wonky point, that this is not just research about impacts on individuals, it's actually research testing a policy structure, which is a little bit different kind of idea. We're using the state college savings plans, which was a policy that already existed. And if I have one policy lesson that I've learned in my career, it's that if possible, don't start a whole new policy, just adjust one policy that already exists if you can. So I don't know what will happen in Azerbaijan with this policy, but it's a lot easier to take a policy that exists and then apply it to a different purpose or a different population or with some different features and build off of that. That was at least our experience in the U.S. So one policy lesson is about universal participation. By universal participation, we mean that everyone is automatically included. So people don't have to sign up for it, they're just included. We've found, and we have very good evidence now, that if people are required to sign up for a child development account, then probably at least 40 or 50% of the population will not be able to do that for one reason or another. Even if you're giving away free money to open an account, about a large portion of the population will not do that. It's not just the poorest people who will not, but disproportionately the poorest people. So if you're not inclusive, if you're not universal, you will miss the kids that you want most in the program. This is a really important policy idea. So full inclusion requires opening accounts automatically, same point that I just made. Another key point is early funding of child development account matters, because we've been able to show with these assets invested with some kind of investment return that the earnings on the investments over time are a significant contribution to the total assets. So this is long-term asset accumulation, so the idea of earnings and compounded earnings is really a critical idea. This is a key issue in a country like Azerbaijan, because the asset managers and capital markets for asset management are not as well developed, and it really is that we were in a meeting with the Labor and Social Protection Minister yesterday. And this was the first point that he actually brought up, that in Azerbaijan there's not the financial capacity to manage long-term assets, and so this is a huge issue. And actually, in that discussion, he saw child development accounts as an opportunity to begin to develop this kind of financial structure for managing long-term assets. So this is a case where the interests of people in social policy can converge with the interests of the economists and the financial people to create social policies that are successful and also contribute to the positive financial structure of the country. So I just suggest that these policy conversations are frequently complicated like this and frequently very interesting. I mean, who would guess that you would be doing, some people would be interested in child development accounts to develop long-term asset management capacity. But that's a potential here in Azerbaijan. There's limited potential of a savings match, so we have found that you can offer to match people's savings, and some people will do that, but not everybody is able to save and get their savings matched. So it's a positive, doing matching savings is a positive thing, but in our experience, you can't really depend on matching savings as the major funding vehicle for accounts, especially for the poorest families. This is about wealth accumulation. This is the point I just made, actually, that 1/3 of the asset accumulation in the accounts that we started just about 10 years ago is from growth of the assets, not from the deposits, but from asset growth. Savings matters in child development accounts. This is a related point, but it's not all about savings behavior. Again, in the United States, we're very individualistic. A lot of people interpret this policy to be about improving people's savings behavior, and we certainly are interested in doing that, but that is really not the main point of this policy structure. This is a policy that aims for asset accumulation, which is not quite the same as savings by individuals. Okay, so research and policy lessons for outcomes for children and families. These data are from 2015. They look even stronger today. These are remarkably strong effects, highly significant statistically, but also materially important effects. So we're able to show that we can open accounts for every child, and 11 years, except for one child in our treatment group out of 1,300, and after 11 years, these young people still have these accounts. So we demonstrated stability, sustainability of the policy structure, no small point. We've demonstrated that the average asset accumulation for the treatment group is much higher than the control group, and the earnings on their accounts is much higher for the treatment group than the control group. So these are, in just purely financial terms, these are very positive effects and can be expected to just multiply over time. We have found that the effects of child development account are strongest for the most disadvantaged households. This is quite important because we're recommending a universal policy. And universal policy means that all the households are included, and that the effects of CDAs are statistically stronger for the poorest households. And so this is back to the point of automatic features really matter for child development accounts because you want to put everybody in the program. This is also more than about just money. So we were looking for also psychological, social, behavioral effects of the family and the children. So we found that child development accounts actually increase that positive outlook, especially for the poorest mothers. Just a little, it's a significant effect. I don't want to exaggerate the effect size, but the mothers of children with a CDA have a little more hope for their children's future. We found that the children in the treatment group for child development accounts have a little better social emotional development growing up. That is, they have better ability to cope with their social situation with their peers and get along with their peers, and their behaviors are socially appropriate. Again, this is not a huge effect size, but it's an effect size that is as large as any other preschool program that we have in America, and this is actually quite inexpensive intervention compared to some preschool initiatives. We found that testing for, let me summarize, we found, actually I'm skipping over them here, but there's several other kinds of effects that are positive, including parental outlook for education. So parents have higher hopes for their children's education when they have a child development account. We know that particular variable is also associated with actual educational attainment, so we have reason to believe that these kids will achieve a little bit higher education because of the account. So all these things together, a big lesson about child development accounts, and I would ask all of you who are going to be looking at these ideas and thinking about them as policy, to think about this as not just development of the finances of the child or the savings of the child, but also really developing the parents and the children together. So you get more than just the money. You get also, and we've demonstrated with this is very rigorous experimental evidence, we've demonstrated that these outlooks and behaviors can be more positive. Okay, policy development in the United States. These are staff and students from the Center for who are working with the Center for Social Development. because we have positive evidence of impacts, then we're able to take this idea outside of the university. So in the United States now we have 6 states that have adopted universal child development accounts. These policies all differ a lot. Some of them are truly universal, they're at birth and automatic. Some of them people have to sign up. Some of them don't start at birth, but start at kindergarten. So there's variation, but the states of Maine, Nevada, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts now have statewide child development account policies. Several U.S. cities have adopted CDAs, including San Francisco and St. Louis. Washington University happens to be in St. Louis, where I work. Lansing, Michigan, Oakland, California, not listed here, and CDAs are now being tested by cities in Los Angeles and in New York City with pilot projects that they intend to expand. There's also been federal child development account legislation with bipartisan support. We work very easily with this idea with both Republicans and Democrats. It's not in the United States, many of you probably aware, our politics are very partisan right now. People on the Democrats and Republicans not able really to work together very well, but this is one idea where people can find some common ground. We have, as Hakeem and others have mentioned, we have child development accounts in other countries, and a lot of these examples will be discussed here today, I'm glad to say. So Singapore is the most developed example with baby bonus and child development accounts that began in 2000. In 2000, actually there was a policy in the educational system that began in 1993. Before that, we had universal child development accounts operating in the United Kingdom from 2005 to 2010. Then there was a governmental change, so this is a kind of other, policy challenge. You can get a policy started, but if the political regime changes, then the policy might not survive, and which happened in the UK. There was a discussion yesterday about Azerbaijan that saying that, actually the political, in this sense, the regime is not likely to change very soon, so there's a certain kind of stability here which may make it possible to develop a child development account policy and get it on strong footing before there's a major political change. We have people using child development accounts in Uganda with HIV orphans. My colleague Lee Zhou is here, and she's going to talk about the Korean Child Development Account project and also a project in Taiwan. The president of Taiwan announced early this year that she's beginning a child development account policy. As I mentioned, we have the important example of Israel for the conference, and we also have policy tests happening in Hong Kong and in mainland China. We just came from meetings in Beijing talking about these policies, and then policy discussion in Azerbaijan, which began last year, and this discussion will contribute to that, we hope. So those are some of the international examples. The president, this kind of thing is happening, bubbling up all over the world. The president of Ghana has suggested that everybody in the country should have an account, including children. So this is I mean, he's not done this yet. It's sort of easy to say things and not do them in public policy, but it's an interesting concept to put on the table for this is one of the more developed countries in Africa and politically stable and really have the capacity to do this. We had an international symposium on child development accounts last year in Singapore, bringing together many of these countries. This is a meeting last year with this is the then Minister of Social Welfare or Labor and Social Protection. So quite interesting and important discussion. So the long-term goal, this is a little bit romantic, but this is the way we think. It's technically possible now to deliver a child development account to every newborn on the planet. I know that sounds kind of like a wild idea, but I think this is possible. The way we think about this is why shouldn't all babies begin life with their birth certificate and their immunizations and healthcare checkup and an account. And this sounds very idealistic, but it's an ideal that actually, in technical terms, very achievable, and it might be a kind of North Star that we can go toward for policy development in the future. And I'll end with the thought that this is a lifelong idea. So child development accounts should get everyone started, but then the policy should be to develop that throughout life, so that there's an account that pays for education and home and helps with career development, maybe investments in an enterprise or business, and helps through the adult years, and then maybe some of it is left over to help support retirement security. So that's the long-term vision, and we appreciate the discussion here about kids accounts. These policy discussions always take a long time, and it's not going to happen tomorrow, but significant progress has been made, and more progress is possible, and that's the way we engage in the discussion today. Thank you very much.
Çok sağ olun Cenab Şehir'den. Cenab Şehir'den qeyd etdiyi kimi, yəni apardıqları tədqiqatların nəticəsində onların üzə çıxardığı, yəni bu uşaq inkişafı üçün açılan hesabların müsbət nəticələri haqqında danışdıq və doğrudan da bu yalnız yoxsulluğun azaldılması üçün deyil, həqiqətən bütün bir ailənin emosional durumunun, psixoloji durumunun yaxşılaşdırılması və ümumiyyətlə uşaqların, həmçinin də valideynlərin özünə inam hissinin artırılması üçün çox gözəl bir təşəbbüsdür, çox gözəl bir proqramdır və bayaq qeyd etdiyimiz kimi bir neçə ölkədə artıq bu proqram özünə doğruldu və dövlət səviyyəsində həyata keçirilir. Həmin ölkələrdən biri də İsraildir və bugün bizim növbəti qonağımız İsraildə uşaq inkişafı hesabları ilə bağlı bu proqramın tətbiq edilməsi haqqında İsraildə Professor Daniel Botlib, İsrail Milli Sığortası İnstitutunun Tədqiqat və Planlaşdırma üzrə rəhbəri, İsrailin Hebrew Universitetinin Bilingual Sosial İş və Sosial Rifah Məktəbinin professoru Cənab Daniel Botlib. Buyurun.
Good morning, everybody. I wish to thank you very much for having invited me to this amazing country. When I look out the window, it's really beautiful, and I'm very glad to be here. And I hope that we're going to have a good day that has started already very, very nicely. I must tell you that to have Michael Sheridan on the team is a great luck for you. You can save a lot of money and time if you listen very carefully to every word he has been saying now and he has been writing for many years. We tried to listen, but not everybody, so it took time in Israel, as you will see. This is a research on the new child development account in Israel that has come out, that has not come out yet. We have finished it, 3 colleagues, myself, Ophir Pinto and Nathan Elabar-Kali at the Social Insurance in Israel. We've just finished it and I'm presenting these results for the first time, so this is nice. Let me give you a little bit about the background. First of all, the studies that we came across by Professor Sheridan were very important to build up our ideas about the CDAs, and they were summarized so clearly just in the talk before. Basically, the promotion of asset accumulation, CDAs can help a lot to increase upward mobility, which is a very important concept. Upward mobility is about thinking about the situation, the socio-economic situation of the parents and the children. If the children manage to move up the social ladder compared to the position the parents had, we call this upward mobility. And then it can also, in the same idea, is that it can reduce persistent poverty. Because persistent poverty is a problem which you have when any child grows in poverty. It will almost automatically become a problem of persistent poverty. It's very difficult because the child, when it grows up in a poor environment, the thing that will most be harmed is the human capital accumulation. And this is so important when you have a child development account and important quality-wise important child policies, then you may have success in reducing the persistent poverty of that kind. Of the children, once they are grown, they should not live in poverty anymore. So we are in a difficult situation. This is from our last year's poverty report, and it is about the incidence of child poverty in Israel, 500,000 relative poverty rates as they are measured by the OECD. When Michael came to Israel, we were on the worst point, but it juggles around from time to time. We're at the worst point and then we move one up. It's unimportant. It's a very bad situation, and to reach the average of the OECD was one of our plans that we proposed the government. We didn't convince them yet, so our struggle to reduce child poverty is still at the very beginning, and the child development accounts are one important aspect of it, but certainly not enough. Because once you have a goal, the government says, yes, we do want to move to the area of the average OECD poverty level of children, then you do not know exactly how you're going to get there, but you have a target. And that is very important. Unfortunately, we couldn't convince the government yet to make such a target in their policies. And we have a lot of targets in Israel. We have an employment target, we had a budget target, budget deficit reduction. They are important, but this, as was said before, is the most important one, because this is talking about the future of the economy and of the society. Okay, so we implemented the program, the Saving for Every Child program, so you see it already in the title that it's a universal program, in January 2017. It covers every child under the age of 18 and every child born thereafter. The account is on the child's name, which means that the parents decide various things about the account, but they can't touch it. It stays for the child until the age of 18, and only under very, very special circumstances can the parents use the account if the child is very sick or something like that. But these are very, very special and restricted definitions. There is a parent, you heard Michael say, make it automatic. And he said it more than once. And it's important. We didn't make it fully automatic. The parents are required during the first 6 months of the child's birth to do a certain action. But then, after that, it becomes a default choice by the authorities to be applied. So if the parents didn't do anything for the 6 months, then the government decides what is to be done, And so it becomes a very important question, what is the government's default decision? We had a lot of arguments about that too in Israel. But I think it's an interesting question we should deal with today or some other time as to whether it is better to have a parental choice that they have to be active or not. It is a kind of getting aware of what you get from the government. So it has its good things if you are required to choose among some alternatives, because that means that you're concentrating on the question, you're thinking about it, and then you're doing it. But as Michael said, it's very difficult because many people are far from these thoughts and they don't do it, they don't pick it up. So for them, we need this default choice. Of course, we have the default choice, which pays you also the half year that you didn't get. So you don't lose anything in that sense. Parents are expected to choose whether to invest the monthly government deposit of 50 shekels, which is about $13.50 per month, into a bank account or into an investment fund. So they have to choose. This is one choice. The second choice is, if they go into an investment account, where do they put the money? So it's in the private sector, that's clear. But is it in a low risk, low yield, or in a medium risk, medium yield, or in a high risk, high yield account? And then there are also the possibilities when you have a multicultural society like in Israel, where we have ultra-Orthodox Jews and we have Arab Muslims who do not want or cannot, according to the law, invest in a simple investment account. So they have their own special line where they can invest the money, which is according to religious beliefs. The default for newborns is an investment account with low risk and interest. I didn't like that, so I'm talking to you about the Israeli economy and about the Israeli CDA, but as I'm a very critical person, so bear with me, and I'm also telling you which mistakes you should avoid. Because here there is a word, low risk, low interest. The thing is that when you invest money for 18 years or 21 years or whatever, a long period, then there is no meaning to low risk, medium risk and high risk. They are all relatively low risk. It's better to go to the so-called high risk and high yield when you tell the investment fund, look, you can put it the best way you think for 18 years, because then you have the fluctuations which are mean preserving over the long run, and this is a very important thing. So I think that we should change this low risk default, because you will see what happens in our simulation when we do what the government has decided. Parents may deposit an additional 50 shekels, additional $13.50 from their child allowance. Every month you get a child allowance in Israel. So you can take from this child allowance the 50. You cannot add more or from another source. But everybody gets a child allowance for the children up to 18, so you can do that. But it's another action. And if people are not aware of it, or are not caring about it, or not thinking about it, they have too many things that bother them during their daily life, because they may be very poor, so they will not do this. So this is another important question on what should be done with this feature. Parents' decisions are reversible. Every month they can change the strategy. They don't actually, except for moving from a bank deposit to an investment fund. Why that is so, you have to ask lawyers. I'm not sure about it, but that's it. If you went into a bank account, you cannot move to an investment account. If you went into an investment account, no problem, you can move to a bank account, but not vice versa. Okay, then we collected the rates of the last 5 years, the last 10 years, the average rates, the profits, yeah, the rate of return of the various risk, of the various possibilities. These are the last 5 years averages. The 10 years, 15 years are better, and 19 years there are better averages, but we took this one because this is more conservative, so it is something that happened over the last 5 years. You see there is a huge difference. This is a yearly, an annual rate, average annual rate of the last 5 years. So the high risk or high income is 7%, and the lowest one in the banks is 0.9%. So it's quite a big difference. These are real rates of return, no inflation included here. Okay, we started in 2006 with the idea in a school of social economic thought and leadership. Then we invited Michael Sheridan to Jerusalem, where he participated with us in a workshop that I organized, and we had a lot of other people coming, thinking about this project. And also Michael was with the minister, Bougie Herzog then I think, and they had a photo opportunity, and the minister put out a book where he wrote about the child development account, but nothing happened. Okay? So it's not enough to write it in a book, you have to do it. So this is a very important lesson too. In 2009, actually in this workshop I invited the finance ministry people, but they didn't come. But we talked about it aside. And one guy there told me, look, we are going to do it only after we cut the child allowance. Then we will bring it back as a child development account. And it's amazing to know how right he was. It took 10 years. They made a severe cut in child allowance. You saw the poverty rates. It was a catastrophic policy, but it happened. And then they brought it back. They were forced to bring it back by a coalition agreement, because we have the ultra-Orthodox parties in Israel. They are very strong. They have many children. They have a very high fertility. And they were very angry that the child allowance was cut. So the finance ministry agreed with them that it will be brought back as a child development account. That's how it was born. According to what says our mastermind, the important thing is to make a child development account. Don't worry too much about how it's going to happen. Do it the way it's possible. That's basically what we did in Israel. Again, Michael said it before in a short sentence. Once you leave it to the parents to be active, the poorer parts of the society, the first quintile, which is the lowest 20% of the income distribution, the parents, the families, they had a 57% active enrollment out of the total families in the lowest income quintile, in the lowest 20%. In the highest, it was 77.5% of families who actually actively chose to enroll. So it's quite a difference. The extra deposit is also an action, it's an activity that you have to do. 31% in the lowest 20% of the society, and 64.5% in the highest 20% of the income distribution. So it's clear. The poorer you are, the less you will be able to decide on this, because you have to suffer a 50 shekels loss in your monthly income. Savings institutions, the third decision that the Israeli system wanted to rely upon, whether it should be in the investment fund or in the bank. So 28.5 to 61%, it's moving up. The richer the people are, the more they will be likely to choose an investment fund. You remember the rates before, that they are more attractive in the investment. Okay, it's not just about money, but it's also about money. Because if you don't get enough money in this account to at least pay a first degree at the university or some interesting professional advancement, then it will not be enough. It will be nice, but not sufficient. So in Israel, we do have this goal that at least you can pay the first degree at the university. Okay, this speaks for itself. Now, as I told you that we have a very multicultural society, and here you see the rate of active enrollment by the ethnic groups. Now I have to tell you that the ultra-Orthodox Jews are considered poor in Israel because the poverty is measured by relative income, as well as the Muslim Arabs. They are also considered poor if you look at the income distribution. So you see that, interestingly, the active enrollment among the ultra-Orthodox, despite the fact that they are poor, was very high. And this is an interesting feature, because the ultra-Orthodox, they are grouped around their rabbis. And the rabbis are intelligent people, and they really understand what's going on, and they told their people, do not choose until we tell you what to choose. That's what happened. So they waited for almost half a year, and in the last week or so, they decided all together. They had good deals with the banks and with the investment funds, so that's what happened. Again, here you can see the choice of savings institutions. Ultra-Orthodox, very high, like the rich. Okay? The Muslim Arab society, it was very low, because they are not open, many of them, like in the south, the Bedouin community, they don't have easy access to such banks and to such investment funds. They don't know enough about it. So this is an important question to ask too. What are you trying to achieve in these CDAs? Are you also trying to achieve financial education? I think yes. I think it's more than I thought before. Before I thought, no, the social issue is the most important. But in the long run, if you can get the child to understand what is compound interest, what is the difference between an investment fund and a bank, then this is an important contribution to its own education and to its own possibility to afterwards choose the right directions for itself. So what were our research questions? Does the SECP, Saving for Every Child program, reduce inequality among the children's future income? We want that to happen, right? Does the SECP enhance future upward income mobility? I explained to you before what is upward income mobility of the children. What is the extent of intergenerational mobility between the parents' current equivalized net income, that means between the current situation of the parents and the children's predicted financial rate of asset return? In order to do the research, we would need to wait for 18 years. We don't have time to wait. Right? So we make a simulation, and the simulation gives you very good results if you accept the assumptions of the simulations. We try to be very careful about that. So this is what I'm presenting to you. I'm going to just move over because you don't like this. Okay. These parameter estimates, the first one on the left is the rank according to the parents' salaries. How much does it affect the rank in the income distribution of the child. A rank means that you are the lowest, the second lowest, third lowest, or the top person in the income distribution. So the parent's situation, economic situation, affects in our simulation by 0.3, only by a third, the rank of the child. So 2/3 of the rank of the child are affected by other things. This is a good thing. What you want is that this number here should be small. The smaller, the better. The smaller, the higher the mobility. The second, the investment fund, is if you choose an investment fund, by how much will you improve the child's rank in the income distribution? How did we know what to take as the income distribution of the children? We took the last year of the 18 years investment, the income in the last year. That is what we call a steady state information about where the child will be. If the child invests it in human capital, it doesn't have to, but if it does, then it will be even better, because there's a good chance that this will be only the starting point of a good career. So you see that this is a very important decision. And this is the most important decision, the fact that the parents added 50 shekels. Now it's clear that the poor parents, they have a very hard time to do that. I mean, they don't have enough money for the day-to-day business. So how can they give another 50 shekels every month? So they usually will not do it. So now we can already think what our first question's response will be. Will it be good for inequality or not, the program of the Israeli program? This is the Gini coefficient, 0.452. Gini coefficient is a coefficient that measures inequality in anything. If you do it on income, so it measures it on income. So, 0.52, 0 is perfect equality, 1 is perfect inequality. 0.52 is not very good. It's what you get when you take all the salaries, net of tax and benefits of the parents, and you make this calculation, you get 0.52. You can also do it like a curve. It's called the Lorentz curve. So this is what happens, and this is what the program does. Unfortunately, the program in our simulation shows that inequality is going to rise. You already saw why, because the poor parents don't have the possibility to have the 50 shekels. And also because they don't know enough about financial education. They don't know what is an investment fund, they might not know what is a bank account, what's the difference, etc. So they might make the wrong choices. And on top of it, the government has decided that the default is not the high yield, but it's the low yield of the investment fund. So this is already written in the results, and when we do this simulation, we take the last year of the 18 years, we get higher inequality. So this is not a very good mark on the Israeli project, and this is your advantage. You don't have to do the same mistakes. You can do it right away in the right way. Which means, yes, the government has to give some money. To whom? To the poor. Because they don't have enough money to put the 50 shekels in. And the 50 shekels is the most important ingredient. And then you say, okay, but then you are going to be stigmatic. You're going to say, you are poor, you get 50 shekels. No. We think that every government that gives, and you remember that from 2008, that was our idea, that every government that gives tax rebates on capital account, and there is no government that doesn't, because rich people know how to get tax rebates from the government. You know, they are good friends, right? So they know how to get it. And then you can look in your own data, in in your administrative data who didn't get such a tax rebate because they don't have capital, the poor. You don't have to ask them, you can just look. And you don't have a poverty line. It may be in the lower middle class, it may be in the very poor section, but you will find them very easily if you organize your administrative data and you just give it the 50 shekels to those who didn't get any tax rebates, if you want, in the last year or in the last 2 years or the last 5 years, you decide. Okay? So there's another option, a paternalistic alternative, you just give them, that's what I said now. Or there may be an educational offer. You say, if you put in someone, let's say 50 shekels, we will put another 50 shekels. That's a bit tough, because then you ask the poor to make a real sacrifice, which you don't ask the rich, but you give them a benefit. And it's a possibility, it's something we have to think about and to test and to talk about to see what is best. Now here, this is a nice chart, which is called the Great Gatsby Curve. It was done by an economist called Korak, a Hungarian economist, I think, in the United States, and it was popularized by the advisor of the economic, what's his name, Andrew, not Schleifer, it's another one, a famous economist who worked for the president in the United States. What he does is he takes on the horizontal line, he takes the Gini coefficient of any program. On the vertical line, you take this intergenerational mobility factor, the one that was 0.3 in our diagram before. And then you just point to where we are. So we don't know exactly where we were without the program, but I think we were somewhere here, like 52%, 0.52 of the Gini, and very high immobility, very low mobility. Okay? And then if you do the program as we did it in Israel, you move it to here. You increase the inequality, but you get some good point on your mobility. That is good. So it's a good thing and a bad thing together. And then you see this point here, or this point here. This you can get, this one, if you change the default from the low risk to the high risk. It's much better to have high risk, then you have already a very good result in your Great Gatsby curve. Because the inequality moves down and the mobility moves up. So you have a mobile and low inequality result, which is really good. If you give a 50 shekels without asking to all the poor, as I explained you before, you will improve it even further. So these questions are so important. You see, here we did what I thought was good when we sat with Michael Sheridan. We thought that you have to ask them to give 50 shekels, and if they give, so we add. But if they don't respond, this is the response rate of the parents, it's a simulation, then you will get some improvement, but not much. The important thing is that if they didn't choose, at least give them the right choice, because usually those who didn't choose were the poor. And then you give them the high yield choice, and they will really do much better than they would do. Otherwise, that's why you get a very good result if you change the default option to a high yield option. So this is a very important conclusion. Okay. The major merits of the Israeli program are its universality. You heard about it also from Michael Sheridan, the importance of it. brought a relatively high enrollment take-up, but then the authorities' default choice for passive parents created 100% take-up because everyone gets something, which is good. The major flaws were that without financial education, income inequality among the children is expected to worsen, not to be better, worsen compared to parent inequality, and thus to affect intergenerational mobility negatively. The flaws can be fixed, as I told you, by choosing a better default option for passive parents at no extra cost. This you should tell your minister, because the cost is being paid by the capital market. The capital market is earning money, and the money is coming to the children. So that is a very important thing. It's a beautiful aspect of how you can get together between the capital market, the finance expert, and the child development program. This is really a beautiful thing, and you should add government matching deposit to parent savings for the disadvantaged children. There's the educational option, and there's the automatic option. I think to know which one is better, you need quite a long perspective, because maybe once you manage to educate the children financially, the profit of that is so great that they will really know much better how to deal with various things in life, that it's a great gain, not just on the CDAs, but a general gain. The means test is important because you cannot pay to everyone, or you can, but then you need to be Sweden or Finland, but I don't know about Azerbaijan. I'm sure not Israel. They don't like this kind of universality of matching. So if you match it, you can do it non-stigmatically, but it needs government work on its administrative data. It's not enough that the banks and the investment funds tell the government, we deducted this and that amount in our bank of all our clients. No, they have to say every client how much tax they paid or did not pay. Then you know everything you need to know. It's a simple question. Did a person get a reduction in the tax because of capital income? Thank you.
Çok sağ olun Cenab Profesör Maralı Dəqdimançım. Və ümid edirəm ki, Azərbaycan nə vaxtsa bu proqramı tədqiq etmək istəyəndə siz daha ətraflı bizim öz təcrübələrlə görüşəcəksiniz və inşallah biz yəqin ki, İsraildən təcrübə mübadiləsi üçün gedəcəyik. Aparıcı səlahiyyətlərindən istifadə edərək mən təklif edərdim ki, düzlükdə müdərlikdə qeyd olunmuyub sual-cavab. Biz biraz vaxtı deyəsən qənaət elədik və 11:50-də bizim çay süfrəmiz hazır olacaq. Hazırdır. Amma mən yenə də aparıcı səlahiyyətindən istifadə edib, müraciət eləmək istəyirəm sizə. Suallarınız varsa təqdimatçılara buyurun. 15 dəqiqə vaxt verir sizə. Buyurun Yunan, Gürcistan'dan gəldi olan suallar.
Nina Shatberashvili, Georgian Association of Social Workers. Thank you so much. So interesting, impressive presentations. I have several questions. Actually, to use your being here, I'll go through all of them. First is that really idea seems very impressive. What are the cons of the idea? Pros we heard, but what are some contradictions? Who is arguing maybe that it is not a good idea, as if it is not spread all over the, for example, United States, in all states, but in some, why the idea was not captured immediately? So maybe there are some contradictions, people are somehow cautious about the idea. This is first question. Second is, what if, for example, example, after reaching 18, child is not willing to continue education, how he or she can use this asset? And the last is, maybe you mentioned, and I couldn't hear, in Israel, this 50 Israeli unit is how much of the whole child allowance? What portion is 50? Thank you.
I will answer briefly the first 2 points, and then I'll turn to Danielle, who will also probably have something to say about those points. There's a long, in policy development, a new idea takes a long time to communicate. People not familiar with it. I think it's better you can begin to express ideas in terms that people understand. So people do understand the saving for a child. So rely on the ideas that people have, and then build off of that. Before going to to communicate to a broad audience, have to communicate the basic idea of saving. It's important. There are several parts of this concept that almost everyone can agree with. That children should be able to develop. We should develop all of our children. These are very strong themes, and then when you place the discussion in that context, then you can begin to talk about specific policies. We also found that having research evidence, testing the idea, and having evidence really very influential. Not just with the general public, but with policymakers. So I strongly suggest, if possible, if you can't do a whole policy, at least do a pilot project and with very good research design and get some results, and then you can begin to be in a policy discussion. Regarding, turning to your second question about use of accounts, doesn't have to be, I mean, every country can decide what this is for. It doesn't have to be just for education. So in some examples, and Danielle can speak to this because I think in Israel, a child can use the money at age 18 in any way. So any country can decide how it wants to use it. Danielle.
I would just like to add a point to the pros and cons. One of the I cannot find cons. I can find another pro, which means that we talked about who doesn't save. So we said the poor don't save, maybe the low, middle class doesn't save because they just can't. It's too difficult for them. But unfortunately, we know that there is something we call myopia, short-sightedness. People do not save enough in their life because, first of all, the expectation of lifetime goes up all the time. Now it's stopping a little bit, but it's going to continue. It's been doing so for many, many decades. So that means that people should take into account that every year they get another quarter of the year if they pass the year well. So it's quite a lot. So that means that most people don't save enough, and I don't know who of you have parents who became, who had a lot of problems, senility, etc., dementia, and then the money is devoured by all sorts of institutions which are very expensive, and people remain penniless, and they don't leave money to their children, not because they didn't want to, but they didn't know that the life can be so expensive at old age. So this is another problem. That means that people don't save enough for the children, okay? The poorer they are, the more children they have, very often. So it's even worse in this situation. So this is another important pro. The con would be the neoliberal idea saying that we know what's good for us, don't let the government tell us what's good for us, okay? We know how much to save, we know everything the best. So do not be patronizing us. That is the coin. But on the other hand, you have the short-sightedness. So you say, okay, are you sure you can go without patronizing? So it's not so clear. After age of 18, people in Israel go to the army for 3 years, the men, for 2 years, the girls. So 20 or 21. So we made a special addition that if you leave the money inside the account, you get another, you get of course all the interest and profits, etc. But you get also another 500 shekels because from the age of 18 you should pay capital income tax if you're not very rich. If you're very rich, you can avoid it. You have to pay. So they get an extra 500 shekels, which is about the equivalent of this tax, so that they will leave it. They are not forced to use it for anything. They can go to India to have a nice trip, or to China, or wherever, to a far country where everything is different. And they do it a lot. It's the same with financial education. I think people should be allowed to make mistakes, and they will learn from their mistakes. But it's also quite a good thing to maybe introduce an incentive to go to study, like in Canada. In Canada they have something that if you put your account for education, then you get some extra money there. So I think it's a good idea to give an incentive to the parents to make it an educational account. As to the 50 shekels from the Israeli payment is very low for the first child and for the fifth and more. But for second, third and fourth it's a little higher. So for the first and fifth and more it is 150 shekels a month. So it's about 1/3 of the child allowance. For the others it's 188 shekels, so it's a little bit less, but it's about 1/3.
Buyurun. Özünüzü tekrar
Good morning. Thank you both very much for a very insightful presentation. I'm Edward Carradine. I'm the UNICEF country representative here. I had one quick question on the issue of conditionality. I wondered if, in your development of your two programs, there had been any discussion about a conditionality element. For example, a child needing to be enrolled in growth monitoring programs, a mother following a program of exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, enrollment in early learning. So behavioural contribution from the family, because I know in Azerbaijan that might be an issue which would address some of the broader health and development issues for children as well. Thank you.
I think we get a lot of variation in policies in the U.S. because cities and states may be implementing. So some of them actually do have. There's many conditionalities, or some of these you may just think of as kind of benchmarks. So completion of a grade of schooling might get a deposit. Personally, I'm not that keen about using this strategy as a behavioral change mechanism, but I'm not against that. I think, and every country or state would decide how it wants to do that.
Okay, about the conditionality, it's a very popular thing among World Bank economists. Like there's a book by Fishman where he praises this, and he was even invited to Israel to the social insurance because our previous executive director, she was very fond of that conditionality. And so she managed easily to convince the finance ministry because they like this. They said, if you're not coming to school every day or enough, then you will not get a child allowance. And this is very, very problematic. Fortunately, the Israeli system, including the social insurance, was not able to implement this law. So I would say a law that is not implementable, you don't have to worry about it because it's not possible. So to make a conditionality in order to get some child benefit, which is something basic, I don't think it's a good idea. I think it's a better idea to say, okay, if people don't go to school, if children don't go to school, send a social worker there, work on it, try to understand what's going on, how you can help, etc. Maybe it's child abuse, maybe it's whatever difficult problem. If you're going to cut them the child allowance, it's just not going to do anything. And fortunately, it is so difficult to follow up on this. You will need so much information from every school, etc., that it doesn't work, and it's good that it doesn't.
Çok sağ olun. Sual vermek isteyenler olur. Buyurun. 5 dakika vaktimiz kaldı.
Welcome, dear guests. I have one short question, it's important. Parents are putting money to this foundation for their children's future. Foundation can touch this money during process of keeping money, example for benefits, as in giving credit to the government or to private sector, and just or can't touch this money.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try to answer. The savings banks and the investment funds, they are going on with their usual business. They get a lot of money from creditors and they use it every day, and they have the banking controller who is checking whether they are doing their business all right. They have to follow certain rules. These rules were not changed by these accounts. So, as much as I know, there is no limitation on the banks or on the investment funds to go on with their normal business, which is quite regulated. In Israel, we had a big catastrophe where banks did wrong things and they brought the economy to the brink. They brought the economy to a very difficult situation. That was in 1983. And then there was a commission that made a lot of regulation for banks. And they forgot to get rid of the regulation, while in the US there was very little regulation, and you had the 2007 crisis that was almost called the systemic crisis. We in Israel had so much regulation that the Israeli banks were not affected by this, and the slowdown in Israel due to the 2008, 7, 8 crisis was hardly felt.
If I could add, we're about out of time, but if I could add just one more word, it relates to several questions in some way. I think the best way to think about this strategy is simple. I mean, the simpler the policy strategy, the better. The least kind of special arrangements, the better. So build up a structure that's already successful. Put it on a stable foundation. Don't add a lot of things that will make it complicated or difficult to track, and that kind of thing. And think about it this way. Think about it as a public good, that we all have water that comes in pipes to our house. We have roads, so we can all drive cars on the roads. And these very simple structures, I think, are really what makes civilization possible. So this is just one more structure that we should put in place that it serves people, they don't have to think about it too much, it's there every day, it makes their life more successful.
Çok sağ olun. Çay fasilasına davet ediyorum sizi. Saat 12'de geri dönmüş şartıyla.